Right. So outline for us what our own opposition says.
Well, our own opposition is they are, I suppose you would call them, or you could call them purists, in the sense that they don't believe that there should be any human interference whatsoever with non-human animals. So they object to the fact that as part of our plan, we would create a small, a relatively small preserve.
It's not that small, it's about 40 or 50
Let me clarify for a minute. I think people might be confused. You're talking about people in the animal rights community.
Yes.
Aren't you? Right. Who are opposed to contraception and alternative tactics,
exactly.
Aren't
well,
you?
They're not opposed to contraception of cats and dogs. They are opposed to the contraception of deer, and their rationale is that deer are wild animals and we should not touch them. Cats and dogs are domestic animals and we can. However, we cannot escape the fact that deer have already been interfered with, and deer's ecology have already been impacted on by humans, particularly intentionally by hunters and by farmers, eradicating all the natural predators, boosting the population by food. I mean, what we're doing is just to go in there and counteract all these and implement our countermeasures. But even within our own movement, even within the anti-hunting movement, we have these very ideological people who are really not basing their thinking on in the real world. They seem to live for an ideology, and I don't think that they really are there for the animals. I think that these people within our movement supposedly are in there for their own glorification as an ideologue. And what do you think about that, Steve?
Well, purism certainly comes to mind. Animal rights can be a very puristic position in various ways, such as being opposed to welfare measures, etc. And I don't want to get into that debate. But you're making a very important point. First, let me point out by saying that by opposing what you're trying to do, and if no other measures are taken, they are in effect siding with hunters.
Exactly.
And so if you're anti-hunting and your position by default supports hunters, it sounds like there's a problem there. But, second, this idea, you made a very good point here, Tony, that we've interfered with this planet to such a degree that it's inadequate to say we need to back off and just let the animals be and let nature regenerate. It's so badly damaged, these webs of life, that we actually have to start to reconstruct some of these things before we can take that position. For instance, I believe in Hawaii, there are slopes where butterflies would pollinate the plants, and the plants are very important, and the butterflies are no longer doing this. They're going extinct. So humans have to pollinate the plants themselves, and it's a very laborious task to do this. I think we begin to appreciate the role of pollinators in our lives.
And the honeybees here too, the honeybees in North America.
Yeah, and to think about we're trying to reintroduce the Mexican gray wolf into the Southwest as a quite deliberate measure because it's been eradicated for the cattle ranching industry's interest. So we have to actively intervene to try to restore some ecological balance, and I hope that we have the ecological intelligence to do this before we can just say we must not interfere from a purist position.
Steve and Jason, big question for the next 5 minutes. Comment on how to save the world, because right now we're just going down the chute, and I don't think that I think that unless something very, very radical and global is done, we are done for within the next century.
Yeah, let me go first. I think that veganism is clearly a crucial thing that we need to promote. But it's the way vegan outreach, generically, if we can say that, is being advanced today is just. It's a joke. It's a utopian dream that this is going to actually do something as the crisis comes upon us. Because vegan outreach is built upon an infinite amount of time, and we only, within a model, ecological model now, a very finite time. We don't have much time to stave off catastrophic ecological collapse of global ecosystems. And we are, after all, in the sixth mass extinction crisis event in the history of the planet. So we clearly need veganism. But let's not for a second delude ourselves to thinking that veganism is going to be adequate. And if we're promoting veganism, let's promote it in the inner cities to people of color, to the poor, to underdeveloped nations. And let's promote it in China and India. We cannot continue to promote veganism to wealthy, elite, middle-class, privileged white people. This is what vegan outreach has been almost in the entire history of veganism for the last 6 decades or so. This is a joke. It's racist by default, and it's certainly elitist. We have to promote veganism around the world. We have to set up shop in China, in India, and let's stop putting our pamphlets out in white communities only, pretty much is what we're doing. And second of all, we have to make alliances, as I've argued on your show before. We have to make alliances with other social movements. We are such a small percentage of the population. In the U.S., vegans are less than 1% now. And the animal rights community is as well, a very small percentage. All of our issues touch on every social environmental issue of any importance. The connections between our movement and other movements are organic. They just need to be, they're already seeded. They just need to be watered. They need to be watered with mutual education on both sides and building bridges. We need to build bridges with the other social movements, the peace and justice movements, with the left, not with the right, but with the left, and with anti-military, with anti-capitalism, and with anti-colonial movements. We need to build movements on a global basis. The only hope we have is as a revolutionary social movements that is multidimensional, that is not just vegan or animal liberation, but total liberation, and that builds alliances globally.